Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. And I'm coming down here to discuss what Amazon has done to the James Bond posters. So, as many of you have already noticed, and it's already been covered in multiple videos from multiple channels, how Amazon has changed the posters of James Bond, and they've removed the guns from many of the posters. And I actually, there's been some outrage about it, and I'm not one for change myself. I like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? History, the authentic character. I prefer that, of course. So I'm not a big fan of the change, but I can say I do, to some extent, I kind of get it. I do kind of get it. I get the reasoning behind it. So, of course, there's been a lot of gun violence that's been going on recently, and this isn't to get into the whole subject of gun banning versus freedom, and we have our laws set in the country. I abide by the laws, and that's just that's how I see it. We have laws. I abide by the laws. We have freedoms. People are allowed their freedoms. So that's kind of how I see it. But I do try to put myself in other people's shoes, just to kind of see where they're coming from, why they may do certain things. Because oftentimes when we're looking into a lot of different matters, we can find out the who, the when, the what, the how. We can figure out all those things, but most of the time, the one thing that's missing is why. So motive. Why? What was the reasoning behind someone taking certain actions? So, to remove these guns from these posters, I could see where, okay, yes, current events. Let's try to go for less gun promotion. Let's try to, especially if they're trying to gear towards the young, trying to bring in a younger audience. I think people my age and the older Bond fans are not, you see that in the poster. It doesn't you don't look at the poster and just be like, oh yeah, I want to go get one of those and go shoot somebody with it. You just, nobody does that. Nobody looks at the poster and thinks that. Maybe a few crazies might do that, but typically, we're talking the average typical person. They are not swayed into those kinds of things just because of the poster. But I can see their reasoning behind it a little bit. And as a dad, as a parent, here's where a little bit more of that understanding about it comes into me. So I remember when I had my kids in grade school, and I'm trying to, keeping kids in clothing in grade school was pretty expensive. Now, I kind of lucked out. I had a good supply for kids' clothes, and brand new kids' clothes, could get them really cheap, and got some really cool outfits. Like my son, he was really big into Spider-Man or Batman and things. So I was able to find these really cool, like 3-piece outfits that came with like a pair of pants, a pair of shorts, and a really cool like Spider-Man shirt or something. I kept my kids in clothes all through grade school, really, really good clothes on the cheap. And so one of the things that was hard to accomplish, though, was trying not to send my kids to school with anything too violent on the front. With Star Wars, they always had like the blasters. So there were things like that. And so I could kind of see why you may take off guns from those type of items. Maybe clothing items that kids are going to wear to school, things like that. Just not to promote that kind of violence to other kids, kind of a thing. There was another reason behind that as well, because yes, everyone is free to wear what they want to wear, as long as it's not like really offensive, like offensive language, things like that. You can't, they're not going to let you wear that in school, obviously. But part of that was being part of some of us and some people are part of a religious community as well. And religious communities can be pretty judgmental. So let's say your kid goes to school with someone else's kid. They go to your church, your religion, whatever, and you put and let's say I put my son, just like, hey, Dad's a big James Bond fan, right? Yeah. Hey, I found you a James Bond shirt. It's of an old Dr. No poster, and there's Sean Connery just standing there. He's got the gun. And then the other kid sees your child wearing that, and he's got a gun. Might go home, say to mom and dad, hey, their son was wearing a shirt and it had a gun on it. And next thing you know, you're getting a phone call from those other parents. Hey, why are you promoting violence? Why are you sending your kid to school with a gun on their shirt? And a lot of people would say, oh, well, just hey, I'm free to do what I want. Just mind your own business. But in a lot of communities like that, there's repercussions. There's repercussions that can happen. You can have certain privileges or things like taken away because others will say, well, they're not setting a good example for the rest of the people here. So I mean, something really tiny like that can snowball. So I can kind of see why an alternative maybe to some of those posters or like on shirts, you could have an alternative of it for kids. But it does kind of beg me to ask, though, then why not just use a different picture, a different picture without the gun in it? There's lots of action sequences and things like that from the movies that a gun's not going to be readily seen in the shot. So, I mean, you could always use different artwork rather than just take what is known and set in stone already and remove something off of it. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways you can look at this, but I do kind of get the point. And probably the reason why I get the point is because, just kind of remembering those days as a dad, and you wanted to send your kids to school wearing something that was cool and was modern and everything, but you knew you couldn't also promote violence on their clothing because the school may even complain about it. So I kind of get their reasoning for it, but to me, that's only if they're trying to bring in a younger audience. So outside of that, it didn't make too much sense to me to do that, unless they truly are just like, hey, we're trying to just not promote guns at all. That being the case, other people have brought out the point already too. Hey, why the Bond films? They're pretty, I don't know, they're pretty mundane in that area compared to a lot of other movies that Amazon promotes. Even Amazon originals have some of those are pretty violent. So I don't know. Why pick on the Bond movies? Why do they always seem to pick on the Bond franchise for that kind of stuff? Anyway, that was my 2 cents worth on it. Not a big fan of it, but there is a piece of me that just kind of like, if I put myself in their shoes and if I try to think of reasons why they did it, I can kind of get it, but not a big fan of it. Anyhow, thought I'd put this video out there, and thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, thanks. Bye.